Good afternoon, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to this urgent public meeting number 12 of today, Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. I would like to give a special welcome to the Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson, and her support staff. Mr. Romney, Ms. Demi Butte, Mr. Stephen Carty. UNOPS representative, Mr. William Square Gonzalez, Mr. Juan Castro, Mr. Mario Gonzalez, and Mr. Patrick Diaz. We have established a quorum of 11 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following members: MP Ludmila D. Weaver. Any other notifications? None. We have an agenda point for this public meeting: discussion regarding the flow and managing of the inmates at the Point Blanch.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I want to.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I had the button lit for notifications, and MP Grisha had her button lit for notifications. Oh, you didn't like? Okay. I had my button lit to speak. So I would like that opportunity, please.
Yes.
Apparently you overlooked
Go ahead.
the button being, thank you, lit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A good afternoon to you, a good afternoon to my colleagues, a good afternoon to the Minister and her support staff and other invited guests here this afternoon. Mr. Chairman, a few notifications during this public meeting on matters pertaining to the prison, and I would like to issue a general reminder of our request for a public meeting on tax reform. Registered under IS 160 and referring to the Minister of Finance statement to Parliament that the budget would have been, the tax reform proposal would have been in Parliament at, I believe he stated in his letter to Parliament, somewhere in December. We would have received that, and we sent for a public meeting, a request for a public meeting, and I want that to be made known. I also want it to be made known that despite several attempts to receive from the government a copy of the coalition agreement, also registered under IS 247, and there's absolutely no response, none whatsoever, leaving us with no alternative but actually to write to His Excellency, the Governor. So I also want to make that known here, Mr. Chairman, during notifications, and I think that would be it, Mr. Chairman, until we start the meeting on the agenda point. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Sarah Wescot-Williams. Points noted. The next person on here is MP Rolando Bryson. Mr. Bryson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, the Secretary General, my colleagues, the Honourable Minister, and the various support members here. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make as a notification with the opportunity that our Honourable Minister of Justice is here, that there's been a discussion, I think, between the business community as well as justice in terms of the closing of Front Street on certain days when there are cruise ships. I can understand the pros and cons of it. However, even now coming onto Front Street, the major obstacle that prevents tourists from, let's say, walking where they're supposed to, which is a sidewalk, is actually the parking of vehicles. Just coming to Parliament now, even though an attempt is made to close it, somehow I counted 11 vehicles between where it's blocked over by the old escargot building till here. Again, weighing the pros and cons, we understand that during a busy cruise ship day, you have a need to maybe try to spread the tourists. We also understand the cons, that this does have a negative consequence on businesses on Front Street. So I'd like to ask the Minister to take all of this into consideration and look into the vehicles parking on Front Street.
Thank you, MP Bryson. We have an agenda point for this public meeting. Discussion regarding the flow and managing of the inmates at the Point Blanch Prison under IS 363/2022-23 dated January 19, 2023. This meeting was requested by MP G.S. Heyliger-Marten, MP Sarah Wescot-Williams, and MP Emmanuel. We go over to the agenda point. On January 19, 2023, Parliament received a letter IS 363/Py22-23 dated January 19, 2023 from MP G.S. Heyliger-Marten, MP Sarah Wescot-Williams, and MP C.T. Emmanuel, with the request that an urgent public meeting of Parliament be convened with the above-mentioned agenda point. The presence of the Minister of Justice was also requested. Hence today, this urgent public meeting. At this time, I will first like to give the floor to the requesters of this meeting to elucidate their request. MP Grisha Heyliger-Marten, you have the floor.
A pleasant good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the Minister of Justice and her support staff. Good afternoon to those listening, viewing, and good afternoon to my fellow MPs. Today, Mr. Chairman, we're here to discuss a serious and persistent issue that the inmates and the staff of the Point Blanch Prison have been facing. Nothing more, nothing less. The meeting requested by my fellow MPs and myself did not include that the minister present us with a presentation. I see that the minister here has a presentation, and it was never requested a presentation. The objective of this meeting is to ask questions, voice our opinions, and come up with a short-term solution for the long-standing issue, and that's it. So as a point of order, Mr. Chairman, I propose that we go straight into round one, as we do not have time to draw out this meeting, straight into round one so that we can ask the questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heyliger-Marten. I didn't want to touch these subjects that much, but happened to be that I read about this meeting in the newspaper. Not that it was on my desk. And right away, I asked Secretary General Garrick, anything that we have received in the Parliament? He said, yes, there is a letter coming in. Plus, the minister also asked for a meeting and to give a presentation about the whole thing. Since it was convened in through the media, not to the right entity first, I believe the presentation is a need. But if the majority agrees or disagrees, we can go on that. Yes, MP Grisha.
Mr. Chairman, I requested to have an urgent public meeting on pending issues. The UNOPS presentation is completely separate, and nor did you mention it in your guidelines that the UNOPS will be here presenting. I never requested for UNOPS to be present here. You literally just stated in your guidelines that we're going to be following the agenda point that I proposed. And I asked for the minister to be here. I never asked for the minister to do a presentation. I have pertinent questions to ask, and I would like to start with that, please, Mr. Chairman, in the first round, since it's the meeting that we requested. I hope you honor that too, Mr. Chairman. Looking forward to your response.
Thank you, MP Grisha. I see MP Bryson has the...
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon again. I mean, this has got to be the first time in the history of Parliament the Parliament requests a minister to come. The minister comes with a presentation prepared, more information that is pertinent to me. Mr. Chairman, when a member requests a meeting and it's honored, it is not just for that member. It is also for the other members of Parliament. I would like a general overview of everything within the prison. No one can speak to what information I want as a member of Parliament, Mr. Chairman. If there is additional information, as long as it fits within the agenda point, and I see Point Blanch Prison, St. Martin, Mr. Chairman, I would propose no. Let us continue, get the information, and everyone will have their constitutional right to pose our questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. I see MP Sarah Wescot-Williams would like to chime in.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I just needed to get it clear, your reference to how the request for this meeting was received or not. And am I to understand that you read about this request in the media, didn't get it, and then the minister made a proposal to make a presentation? You got that before you got a request from the members, of which I am one. Is that the case? Then I would like you to break down the dates, and I would like to see the ministers, where the minister's proposal came in for, to make this presentation on a more general topic than the request for the questions. Because we are seeing this too often, that with specific items being mentioned by members of parliament to receive answers, to ask questions and receive answers to, that the ministers come and from their mind with a presentation that they believe should be presented. And I feel that in a case like that, the members of parliament should be able to ask their questions directly. And if the answers appear in the presentations, then let that be pointed out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Wescot-Williams. I would like to just say that I got to know about this meeting through the media before I got to know in the parliament, because the way, and we all know the procedures, how it works, of booking any incoming documents and all that. So just to be upper hand, I decided to ask Garrick, and that too at a workshop meeting on a Saturday. I asked him and he said, yes, we have received, but we had to work on it. It has to be booked. And via that, Monday morning, I see it on my desk. And we took the appropriate action for the Wednesday meeting to come in. So that's it. Thank you for that. And I would like to give the floor to the, I see that there's a proposal, and I would like to adjourn to discuss and see how will we come out on this point. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Welcome back. After discussion with all the some members of parliament and with minister and getting the consent from the Secretary General at hand, I would like to proceed with announcing that these are representative of UNOPS, the list which was sent out by the Minister of Justice, and they are here to answer, if at all, any questions we have. And the other thing is the minister has full rights to do her presentation, and we will continue with the presentation. So I would like to give the floor to the Minister of Justice, Ms. Anna Richardson, for her opening remarks and presentation. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Am I heard? I'm not sure how this new system works. Are we good to
Now,
go?
yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of Parliament, SG of Parliament, Director of the prison, my support staff, and those of Parliament, invited guests represented by UNOPS, all tuned in this afternoon to this meeting, and of course, a special good afternoon to all senior citizens. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity to proceed with this presentation we have prepared. I would like to provide, where possible, considering the subject matter, an in-depth information on the developments at the prison. In recent media reports, the Inmate Association of the Point Blanch Prison have raised several concerns regarding the conditions of their detention. In order to provide clarity on the current situation in the prison, I will address the various points that have been raised, as some of these were misrepresented. You will understand that for security reasons, the ministry is not always at liberty to disclose information on the developments surrounding the facility. This can lead to persons drawing the wrong conclusion, as is concerns the status of the prison. Let's talk about the inmate demographics. When we look at the demographics of the prison population, we see that 80 are males and 7 females. With that, the prison is at full capacity. The average age of male inmates is 28, and that of female is 30. The cells accommodate 2 inmates per cell. By adhering to this, the maximum number of 2 persons per cell, we are taking the right steps to prevent any issues of overcrowding. Here I would like to call your attention to the type of criminal offenses that have been committed by the current prison population. As you can see, the largest group of offenses is that of gun possession. Thereafter, the group attributed to murder being the second largest. An amount of 18 inmates have been charged or are in pretrial detention for murder. 8 inmates have been charged with armed robbery. And as you can see in the table, a large percentage of the inmate population at Point Blanch Prison are in detention for dangerous or heinous crimes. I move on to the main challenges of the facility. As you know, one of the main challenges at Point Blanch Prison is the age of the facility in itself. It was built in 1990. The prison's infrastructure was considerably damaged by the passage of Category 5 Hurricane Irma and Maria in September of 2017. The building and the equipment, as well as the prison staff and inmates, were directly impacted, negatively impacted, of course, by these hurricanes. This led to some of our high-level inmates being transferred to other prisons within the kingdom for security reasons. Although repairs were made to the damaged infrastructure since then, the lack of structural maintenance to the facility for many years has now made the need for a new prison structure even more pressing. The virus, COVID-19, which was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Association on March 11, 2020, also presented challenges as it hampered operations at the prison, as educational programs were halted and the movement within the prison were kept at minimal to prevent transmission. In addition to the above, there were also a number of other challenges, such as limited financial resources and a high absenteeism amongst prison staff. What are some positive developments at the prison? To be able to tackle these challenges, the first step was to create a stable and experienced team that was capable to take on these obstacles. This was done by establishing a new prison management team, which has brought much needed stability and movement within the prison status. The current management team is experienced and focused on improving and elevating the prison. With the appointment of a new prison director, we managed to discontinue the habit of having a director on an interim basis, which further added to the instability of the prison. Since 2020, there has also been an increased cooperation with the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations, BZK, in providing the needed technical support for the improvements needed within the prison. Over the past 2 years, great results have been achieved in all aspects of the prison, such as infrastructural, prison personnel, security, and more. Please allow me to delve more deeply into these improvements. Infrastructural improvements. One of the focal points of the improvements in the prison in 2022 was in infrastructural improvements. The recreational and educational spaces were neglected for quite some time have now been addressed. Over the past months, the following spaces have been renovated together with inmates. I reiterate, together with inmates, they have been renovated. I call on your attention to the screen. The gym facility, dingy, old, rusted, dangerous in their usage, a facility that had hardly been used because it was not in the right state for persons to use them. Together, we had the inmates who wanted to participate. They are part of our facility management team. They entirely stripped the old space that was being used as the gym. They painted this facility. I, as minister, ordered new equipment for them. These are the photos you're seeing on the screen of the current state of the gymnasium, or the gym rather, at the prison. Computer room. This is a facility, and if you look closely, you'll see that we have inmates currently participating in that computer room. Not too long ago, we published where at least 4 of our inmates have successfully completed and graduated from the GED program. 11 inmates in total takes part in that program. Because of the successful rating in the program, more inmates are signing up. Sporting, or the open air space. Again, an area that was neglected for years, an area that was dingy, grimy, had absolutely no life to it. This done by the inmates facility management team. As you can see, inmates are freely and with much enthusiasm participating in the painting, cleaning, and even stenciling of the property. Here is an area view for you to see what it currently looks like. The laundry room and central housing area, staircases all done and painted by inmates. The barber shop. Inmates are busy providing this level of care and service to other inmates. The music room. The band is striking up again. They are receiving trainings from at least one of our guards who is a part of a band himself. Here's another picture of them participating with instruments. Sewing room. I'd like to draw your attention to the far right of that photo where you can see material or clothing made by inmates are hanging. And I move on through you, Mr. Chairman, to talk about the rehabilitation programs. Another point of improvement has been the development and enhancing of the overall daytime program for the inmates and providing more rehabilitation programs. This includes, but is not limited to, reintroducing educational and sports programs as well as expanding the labor possibilities for the inmates. I want to touch a little bit again on the whole sports aspect. A few months ago, we actually had a team. Since the inmates did such an awesome job on the exterior open area that they have, a soccer team that came down from the Netherlands and played a couple matches with the inmates at Point Blanch Prison. So I'm going to touch about firstly, the GED program has been reintroduced and made available to all inmates. The 6-month prison education program, or PEP as they have termed it, was a pilot implemented to assess the new and improved computer-based learning method. The inmates can log into their personal account And with the guidance of the GED teacher, the inmates can work on GED subjects such as math, language, social studies, and science. In December 2022, an end-of-term ceremony was held for the inmates, of which 4 inmates received an official GED diploma, after which 2 additional inmates sat their GED exam in January in 2023. So now we have 6. And were successful in attaining their GED diplomas to be received soon. This is a great milestone that should not be unmentioned. Currently, the educational services are being tendered for the 2023-2025, and the prison strives to continue the educational courses in February 2023. As such, I encourage those who are part of this program to continue and other inmates to join. Family Fun Days have been reintroduced and take place every 3 months. The purpose of this day is to maintain close relationship with inmates' relatives and loved ones. Inmates who have shown positive behavior over the months are eligible to partake in this event as privileged earn. This has also been well received by the inmate population. As seen in the photos, a complete renovation and refurbishment of the gym took place in 2022 after the request to do so for many years went unanswered. With the upgrade of the gym, much more focus has been placed into sporting activities in general for the inmates. The sewing room is also operational and can provide groups of between 12 to 15 inmates with structural sewing lessons. Labor opportunities have been increased. Inmates now have the opportunity to work in the kitchen, the library, or on the cleaning or maintenance team. There are many projects that the inmate maintenance team has been able to work on in 2022. The prison intention in 2023 is to increase the number of inmates that can participate in such activities. By extension, there is currently in the pipeline a program that is being launched between the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of VROMI for the inmates to be able to work external to the facility. In the last quarter of 2022, in collaboration with the Probation Services, or SEIB, an anger management course was given to a group of inmates. This course was successfully completed by all inmates who participated. In 2023, the Probation Services is preparing to launch a renewed structural approach in connection with the inmates from the moment they enter the prison to provide a more individualized rehabilitation program for the individual inmate that will positively contribute to the inmate's reintegration into society. Safety and security. The overall safety and security of the facility has also been tackled over the last couple of months by carrying out the following actions. Of the security installation at the prison, the following has been repaired thus far. The installation of a new cell lock has been completed, and all cells now have a heavy-duty cell lock. The fire alarm system has been installed, and a new entrance gate has also been installed. A new electronic monitoring provider, meaning or specifically the company Buddy, has also been selected and has gone into effect as per February 1st, 2022. This new provider is fully operational and works well. Recently, we also had an inmate go on short leave to attend a funeral in Statia with the usage of the ankle bracelet. Several safety protocols, such as the cell search protocol and the entrance of vehicles and good protocols, have been drafted and are on the way. Preparations have also been made for the hurricane season and the necessary protocols to set in place to mitigate any natural disasters if needed. Mr. Chairman, through you, I'd like to touch on the matter of personnel. Over the course of years, the prison has dealt with many challenges in regards to structural staff shortage, which in turn leads to a higher workload, resulting in an increase in the number of sick reports and absenteeism. In order to break this vicious cycle, it was necessary to produce data regarding this phenomenon to understand the trends surrounding absenteeism, and there's a chart to be able to further give insight into that. Based on the analysis carried out of the staff members that are officially prison guards based on the current function book, only an estimated amount of 50% are deployed due to sick leave or persons taking up the functions in other ministries, other departments within government. This amount must then be divided over all prison facilities, Point Blanch Prison, MLC, and police cells. This creates a strain on the organization as these persons are still included in the budget but are not functioning at the prison. With the now placement process on the way, these matters will be addressed. In terms of sick leave, in the graphs, you can see the difference in the sick leave percentage in 2021 versus that in 2022. This information has been gathered manually and shows the absenteeism trends over months. As you can see, overall, there's a slight decrease in the absenteeism. To address the lack of a proper HR system, discussions are currently underway with Central ICT Department to implement the HR system that would further bring structure to the personnel management of absenteeism and that of staff. To reduce the high percentage of sick leave in the prison, the decision was made to collaborate with MedWorks. This is an important step in the right direction, all the more because tackling absenteeism in this manner has not taken place before. MedWorks has started with the ministry in October of 2021, with the first assessment of employees who have been absent. MedWorks' efforts are aimed at ensuring that prison staff can be put back to work as quickly as possible, as quickly and responsibly as possible. Currently, 36 staff members have been referred to MedWorks and their cases handled on a case-to-case basis. The staff members referred to MedWorks are those that can be referred to as frequent flyers or those on long-term sick leave. The action taken by MedWorks are the following: carrying out a broad medical assessment, drafting a report on the possibilities and limitation per case. If options are limited, the labor specialist will provide advice with alternative positions. These are often administrative functions. Guards often have physical complaints and limitations as a result of which the work in the prison is no longer ideal or is no longer possible. In some cases, there are no available opportunities due to their physical limitation, and these persons are declared unfit for work. These actions taken by MedWorks give the HR department better information on how to move forward with a particular case. With the sick leave data gathered, insight is created on the frequent flyers. These employees can then be addressed more specifically to account for their absenteeism. In the beginning of the second quarter of 2023, a process will commence with the prison HR department, HR Justice, and MedWorks to adhere to the recommendations thus far, provided the latter, which will ultimately provide vacant FTEs at the prison. Prison guard trainings. A positive development in the area of personnel is the prison guard training program that started in September 2022 in cooperation with the Dutch custodial agency in the Netherlands, DAE. All prison guards are given the opportunity to join the trainings that cover different areas: integrity, self-defense, security, aggression regulation, prison law, and more. This is a great step that the ministry is immensely proud of, as it has been more than a decade since the prison guards have gotten the opportunity to enhance their skills and develop their knowledge in their field of profession. It is of great importance that prison officers, current and new, are up to date with their knowledge and skills so that they can handle every situation with utmost skill and precision. As shown in the photos, 4 groups consisting of about 10 guards each have already completed the first module of the training. All prison guards are expected to complete this training by the end of this year, 2023. Just giving you a moment to be able to see that. The food menu. The food provided by the prison's kitchen is prepared by a certified chef who is skilled in producing nutritious meals based on a well-balanced diet. All dietary constraints of each inmate are considered or is considered, such as allergies, intolerance, religious preferences, diabetes, and more. In addition, on occasions, as you may know, requests are made to the prison director for the purchasing of food from establishment outside of the prison to be delivered to inmates. This, however, is contingent on good behavior and is a privileged opportunity earned. The inmates receive fresh meals every day, which consist of breakfast, a sandwich with tea, lunch, a hot meal consisting of protein, carb, and vegetables, and then dinner, a sandwich with tea. Occasionally on weekends, baked goods are also prepared for the inmates. During holidays, such as Christmas, special meals are also prepared, which include Christmas ham, turkey, and more. Communication with family and friends. All inmates have the right to communicate with family members and or their loved ones. For this reason, every inmate has scheduled days and times that they can make phone calls. The officers record all the names of the inmates who wish to make phone calls daily. Inmates who register for calls are not restricted from making these calls unless for safety reasons. There may also be occasional limitations due to technical issues that the prison is presented with by using a land-based telephone system. Due to the difficulties encountered by using a land-based system, the prison has decided to move forward to a VoIP inmate telephone system that does not require the old land-based connection system. So it's the acronym for Voice over Internet Protocol, okay? Is a method used for the delivery of voice communication and multimedia sessions, thank you, over Internet protocol networks such as the Internet. We recently selected a suitable inmate telephone system of which the prison has received the first sample as shown on your screen. The sample will be tested by the prison management and the telecommunications provider in the coming days. It is the intention to have the new inmate telephone system up and running within the first quarter of 2023. Antibacterial wipes will be also provided next to this facility to ensure that it is cleaned every time used. Leave and conditional release. The procedure to request a leave of absence in order for an inmate to attend a funeral or visit medical specialists is done according to an established procedure. Every inmate has the opportunity to submit a formal request for a leave of absence to the prison director. Once a request has been submitted formally, an assessment is done about the possible safety risks involved in granting the leave of absence. This regards not only potential safety risks for the community and the prison guard, but also for the inmate him or herself. Based on the assessment, a formal decision is made by the Ministry of Justice. The granting of conditional release, or in this case, early release, it's a conditional release and is regulated in Articles 130 and 140 of the Criminal Code. In general, an inmate can be eligible for early release after 2/3 is served of their detention sentence. However, it is important to know that this does not or is not applicable to persons in pre-trial detention, but to persons who have an irrevocable verdict. Again, this is not for persons in pre-trial detention, but that for persons who have an irrevocable verdict. Early release can be granted in a situation whereby urgent need for cell capacity presents itself. Electronic monitoring or wearing an ankle bracelet can be imposed as a special condition of the early release. Important as well to note, an inmate does not, however, automatically have a right to be released on early release with an ankle bracelet. The behavior of an inmate during detention is an important factor in the decision making. In addition to that, an evaluation process is done by our probation department, and if there is a negative advice, that person can be denied early release. In 2015, the new criminal code came into effect. The provision of the new criminal code removed the need for the ministerial regulation of the electronic monitoring. This law, which automatically led to early release on ankle bracelet when one has 18 months detention left. This regulation was revoked in October of 2015. For the year 2023, there are 5 inmates that will be eligible for conditional review and, if all is positive, release. 2 inmates have been evaluated thus far, and as of January 13, 2023. Recently, inmates stood in solidarity with one of their fellow inmates who they believed was up for conditional release. However, upon evaluation by the parole board of the criteria necessary to release this inmate, which included a risk assessment, it was advised on negatively. Steps are already being taken for when this inmate completes his sentence. It is important to note that as quickly as reviews are done and persons are granted early release, capacity quickly refills due to the high rate of crime being committed on the island. The media reports also make mention of prosecutorial misconduct. The Central Collegia for the Recasseling, also known as the Parole Board or the CCR, currently consists of 4 independent members with legal and social backgrounds. The CCR advises the Minister of Justice about the issuing of early release, denial or suspension of early release, and the revoking of early release. The board has an important advisory role. The Minister of Justice, however, has the discretion to deviate from the advice in certain exceptional situations. The public prosecutor is not a member of the parole board. This committee has admitted that their turnover time is not as prompt as many would like, and they are taking steps to improve this. Medical services. In terms of medical care of the inmates, the well-being of all inmates is of great importance, and it is our duty to attend to all inmates with medical inquiries. It was indicated in the previous media reports that medical staff is not on call to assist during off-the-clock emergencies. This statement is incorrect. The prison's medical staff is on call on 24 hours and responds to emergency with promptness. In terms of the medical intake and screening, please allow me to elaborate on the process. Upon arrival of each inmate, the nurses carry out a brief medical assessment. This includes discussing the current medical issues or important medical history that requires follow-up or impair the inmates. A follow-up in-depth assessment is carried out within 1 to 30 days upon their arrival. The in-depth medical assessment includes a visual observation, general assessment of medical history, mental health assessment, and a blood test, which generally includes an HIV screening. However, another important note, there have been challenges with carrying out blood tests at the lab for inmates who are not in possession of valid identification. This is a requirement to carry out the lab tests. The blood tests are not mandatory and are carried out on a voluntary basis. It is the prison's director's intention, this year being 2023, to increase the focus on medical care at the prison. His plans include refurbishing the medical room, as well as updating the medical protocols, such as the medical intake as described above, medicine distribution, and much more. 2023 and beyond. This year, apart from the UNOPS Phase 1 project, which will be elaborated on hereafter, the prison's goals are to focus on a number of projects, such as to refurbish the recreational room. It has already been outfitted with chairs and TV. Add an additional small kitchen in the area of the recreational room that the inmates can make use of. Improve the security systems such as access scanners, perimeter security, and more. Improve the ICT and implementing an effective prison intake and registration system. Improve the overall medical and forensic care. Expand on the rehabilitation and reintegration program in collaboration with chain parties such as SIS, EAIS, or BAY, faith-based institution, and the Ministry of Vromi. Mr. Chairman, through you, I would shortly like to discuss the UNOPS Rule of Law Facility Prison Project. Although there have been quite some positive developments in the current prison facility, it does not take away the need and necessity for a new, improved, and state-of-the-art facility. The discussions on building a new prison in St. Martin have been ongoing and have come to its final stages as the project agreement was signed on December 7, 2022 by UNOPS St. Martin and the Netherlands. The discussions have been held on a technical level between the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations, the Ministry of Justice St. Martin, in particular my cabinet, and UNOPS. The UNOPS team is currently here with us, as you know, and they are carrying out their second mission for St. Martin with the purpose of stakeholders' engagement and logistical preparations to establish a presence in the coming weeks. I have invited them here today to provide a presentation on the first phase of the new prison project, because on the subject matter and considering the good progress we have made, it is only but right that the public as well be brought up to speed as to our progress with UNOPS. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to welcome UNOPS to be able to give their presentation.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. I would like to adjourn for 2 minutes, and I'll continue back. Meeting adjourned. Welcome back. I believe the Honorable Minister would like to make a comment. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add a little part of what I was closing out in stating. So this is the Justice Committee, and on the subject matter, considering the fact that earlier this week, UNOPS made this presentation they're going to make to His Excellency Governor Bailey, and tomorrow they're going to be making this same presentation to the Council of Ministers. It is only but right that in this setting of the Justice Committee, they also make this presentation so that it's aware. Okay? Public meeting, it's been made to Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of Justice. I would like to give the floor now to the representative from UNOPS, Mr. William Square Gonzalez.
Honourable Chairman, SG of the Parliament, Honourable Member of the Parliament, Honourable Ministry of Justice and our chairperson and support staff, the experts from the United Nations, and the citizens of St. Martin attending this public meeting. Good afternoon. It's an honour for UNOPS to be once again present in this island to support this important endeavour that is the rehabilitation, expansion and development of the Point Blanch facility in St. Martin. We have endeavoured in a kick-off mission this week following several, I would say, developments in the past few months, which is now leading us towards implementation phase and tangible results. I am happy to say that following these few days of interacting with several stakeholders, we are seeing positive developments that I'm very happy to share with you today. The presentation here will be short and threefold. It will touch upon the objectives and the agenda of the kick-off mission, an overview of the elements of phase one for the general public to understand the endeavors at stake, and third, a presentation of the actions to be undertaken during the first quarter of this phase one and the tangible actions to be expected in the upcoming month. Objectives for this mission. UNOPS is initiating project operations in the island. As you can see here, I am accompanied with experts here that will be based in St. Martin, directly working on the operationalization of the first phase. We will be working on logistical arrangements, establishing technical working relationships. Second, we will work on establishing governance mechanisms. As it is of the knowledge of the people who know of this project, an internal project board will be established to make sure that this public investment satisfies the need for improvements in this facility. Technical working groups will similarly be developed in order to make sure that all the technical challenges are anticipated, addressed to achieve sustainable solutions. Finally, and due to the highly sensitive information that will be managed, protocols will be developed to ensure that all sensitive information is properly disclosed, controlled, and processed. Finally, we will inform, as part of our duty, being the United Nations, of our roadmap and the actions to be undertaken, and define the next steps and get the buy-in of the different stakeholders on this detailed roadmap, on the quality planning that I will be presenting here today, and on the information gathering that we will endeavor in the weeks to come. Just a quick overview of the agenda points. As you can see here, we have already been meeting with the Ministry of Justice and her staff, the management team from the prison facility in Point Blanch. We have had a lot of working sessions presential in the prison, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the director of the prison for his generous offer to host the UNOPS team directly in the facilities for them to understand better the intricacies of working in these premises. Meeting with His Excellency the Governor, the Progress Committee with whom we've met yesterday, and more working sessions. Today, We have been meeting with the prosecutor's office this morning, understanding the challenges of today and the challenges of tomorrow to be factored into the design of the facilities. We have been meeting with DPB and for establishing UNOP's presence in the island. We are honored to present this to you today. And finally, we'll be presenting, as before mentioned, to the Council of Ministers tomorrow. A quick overview of the phase 1 and the activities to be undertaken under these initial steps. 3 key objectives for this first phase of the project. First, we will work on designing and procuring resilient, sustainable, and effective transitional facilities. It is easily understandable that the challenge that is at stake is big and is of proportion. We are talking about remodeling a facility which needs to keep operating, and as such, we require a transitional facility. Similarly, we will be working on developing the long-term facilities to make sure that there is seamless continuation of justice operations in the island. Finally, it is paramount and it is critical to make sure that there is seamless transition from this design phase to the actual construction of the facilities which will bear the fruits for the transformation. This is why we are already engaging into defining the criteria and the frontiers that will define our interventions for the second phase of the project, which is the construction. Just a rapid overview of the time frame for the phase 1 as established in the project documents and the agreements. We are starting as of now, meaning early February 23, to establish all the government system and the project management framework. This will lead to the development of a prison brief, which will provide a complete overview of the programming for the facilities and the requirements programming. This, in turn, to be met during May this year, will inform the development of the design of the transitional facilities as well as the long-term facilities that should be completed during the 4th quarter of this year. Similarly, we will work on the signing of the second phase to make sure that we have a legal framework to implement those activities towards construction. We hope to start construction of the transitional facilities, more than we hope, we plan actually, to start the construction of these facilities during the 1st quarter of 2024. UNOPS has already taken several steps towards dispatching its team into the island and for the project. As you can see here, the little green dots confirm the roles that have already been contracted or secured by UNOPS. Our project manager will be present in the island on the 15th of February. UNOPS team will maintain presence from now onwards in the island to make sure that their capacity is installed. Some roles are pending. Little yellow dots are still in discussions, but to be confirmed very soon. And finally, red dots are the roles that have not been started yet, but that will be endeavored in the next few weeks. We understand that there is a need for information and that there is an urge for understanding what is happening in terms of development in Point Blanch. UNOPS has established a comprehensive framework agreed by all parties to this tripartite agreement to make sure that it reports on progress, adequate financial use, and positive developments. The latter is expressed here today. You can see here monthly progress reports, quarterly progress reports, quarterly financial statements, annual financial reports, final financial reports, and final reports, providing a comprehensive monitoring framework for the public to access information through the ministry. We understand that this is not an isolated initiative. It is just not another construction project. This falls under a wider set of recommendations and guidelines that the country is currently addressing. We have taken those guidelines and recommendations into consideration, and they will form part of the compass that we will use for making the strategic decisions today for the infrastructure of tomorrow. These will include, of course, the recommendations of the CPT, the reports that will be generated from the Progress Committee, the elements provided by the Law Enforcement Council, and of course, UNOPS being an agency of the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially adherence to SDG number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. I will now endeavor to present the activities to be developed during the 1st quarter of 2023. As it has been communicated by the ministry previously, UNOPS is currently finalizing the establishment of a host country agreement, which will form a treaty between this United Nations agency and this country for presence in the island. This host country agreement has been cleared and is currently pending signature by the end of March 2023 from PM Jacobs. Meanwhile, UNOPS will already start preparing and planning for these activities. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to read through at the moment, but give me a sec. We will work on establishing project governance, establishing technical working groups for making these decisions, information gathering, review and consultation, preparation of project implementation plan, and develop some public communication plan. This will be all developed throughout the month of February 2023. In parallel, next slide please. In parallel, we will work on the requirements programming and development of prison brief, which will inform the prison profile and then lead to the development of the design. Master planning, adequation with framework, functional programming. This will also be endeavored through detailed site evaluation, site definition. All of this would lead to the development of the prison brief and a business case. This is of critical importance because the strategic decisions of today will inform the administration of tomorrow. And as such, the technical choices that will be made will ensure consideration for life cycle cost of the facilities, meaning what will be the implications in terms of operations, maintenance, public spending, quality of the detention conditions. All of this package will be presented to the government of St. Martin by the end of April 2023 for discussion and decision making in the first 2 weeks of May 2023. A quick overview of the conditions of the host country agreement. The host country agreement is a legally document that has been cleared by both parties. A signing ceremony will be held presentially in person between PM Jacobs and UNOPS Executive Director, Mr. Jens van der, in UNOPS HQ in Copenhagen. We are currently working with Foreign Affairs to ensure that this happens as soon as possible. Finally, as I mentioned previously, UNOPS will begin operating prior to the signing of the host country agreement. It will do so under mission modalities, as it will not have official established country presence. Nevertheless, it will take all the preparatory steps to make sure that the project keeps moving forward and achieve expected deliverables in due time. One of the critical tasks that are necessary to move these important projects forward is the establishment of a technical set of sub-working groups, considering 3 parallel aspects. First of all is a prison management and planning working group, which will advise and support technical discussions related to prison operations. We will seek the adherence of all relevant stakeholders for the prison management and planning workshops, meaning UNOPS experts, as well as prison administration and any other experts that we can get expertise from for similar circumstances. Second, an infrastructure development working group, which will advise and support on the technical discussions related to the construction activities in St. Martin. We understand that there is a challenge related to this sector, and we understand that this need to be anticipated from the earliest stage and benefit from the lessons from experienced professionals in the island. Finally, the intervention of UNOPS in Point Blanch, as I mentioned previously, is not an isolated endeavor. It falls within a wider structural challenge that links this initiative to the wider justice chain. And as such, the establishment of a justice and social affairs working group to advise and support discussions related to the wider justice chain is an absolute necessity. We anticipate risks associated with this implementation, and we are addressing them. Some of the risks that you see here have been mentioned prior in this presentation, and mitigation measures are here detailed. The 4 key risks that we're currently anticipating: the delays in the establishment of the host country agreement. I have exposed prior how we are going to mitigate that risk. Challenges during data gathering. We understand that the collection of information can be a challenge, especially in such circumstances. Nevertheless, close engagement and presence in the island from the earliest steps, meaning from now onward, will allow us to make sure that we have swift and rapid data gathering. Uncertainty on applicable regulatory definitions. Regulatory definitions and applicable standards will be key for defining the facility that will shape the future of detention in the island. This will be an in-depth discussion that will consider international standards, Mandela rules, and all best practice in terms of prison planning. Finally, as UNOPS does not have presence in St. Martin, we acknowledge that there may be a risk related to our limited knowledge of the construction sector in St. Martin that could lead to void tendering processes. We are already working with the actors of the sector to conduct robust benchmark analysis, maintain business intelligence as a continuous activity, and engage with all sectorial actors to ensure continuously updated knowledge to make sure that this project moves forward. And with this, I will be closing. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. William Gonzalez, for your presentation. Members of Parliament, the allotted speaking time is 20 minutes in the first round and 10 minutes in the second round. And according to the speakers list, I would give MP Grisha Heyliger-Marten the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I pose my questions, I'd like to pose a point of order so that you don't start my clock while I'm speaking. I would like to first and foremost thank UNOPS, the representatives of UNOPS, for their presentation. Thank you. Although it was never part of this agenda point, I am still happy that we were able to get an update from you, and we're looking forward to an update from you in the next quarter. Mr. Chairman, my point of order is mainly towards you. I mean, you are not owning up to what I've just requested of you. I stated that you never informed us that UNOPS 2 was going to be making a presentation in advance. It was never in writing, Mr. Chairman. You just literally just deviated from the rules of order, and everything that was stated here, presented here today, we wasted close to an hour, 10 minutes off of an hour, based on, and they completely deviated from the agenda point. That's mainly what I wanted to state. We went completely off the agenda point, and you completely rammed whatever you wanted in a meeting that only had one agenda point. And Mr. Chairman, I would like to now ask questions regarding that one agenda point. Mr. Chairman, don't get me wrong. You do the crime, you do the time. I'm a firm believer of that statement. But I also believe in second chances and the importance of prison reforms. But most importantly, Mr. Chairman, I'm a strong advocate for human rights. The United Nations Human Rights Instrument, dubbed Basic Principles of Treatment for Prisoners in the first articles, which was adopted in 1990, in there it states in the first article, all prisoners shall be treated with respect due to their inherent dignity and value as human beings. And Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights states that no one shall be subjected to torture or inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. St. Martin has to comply to these treaties because we're part of the Dutch kingdom. But the issue is that St. Martin is already treading on thin ice when it comes to human rights violations of inmates. So my first question, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Minister of Justice is, please inform Parliament how many cases related to St. Martin's Prison has the Dutch kingdom lost in the European courts for violating the human rights of inmates? When it comes to the capacity and the overcrowding, which is the flow, which is what we're here to discuss, Mr. Chairman, from what I've been able to gather in the past week, and just what was clearly stated by the Minister of Justice, the capacity is 80 males and 7 females. This created many logistical and safety issues, as keen attention needs to be paid to the separation of inmates into the accounts into account when it comes to gang affiliation, type of crimes committed, and those that need constant medical attention. This, in turn, also has a negative trickle-down effect with the new cases of convicted persons and those held for more than 10 days in town that are forced to be released. Just recently, that happened. I can list it. Either pending their trial or pending their term. Article 1, paragraph 32 of the Criminal Code states that it is the minister that sets the condition for early release of inmates. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the Minister of Justice if she is familiar with this article and if she is indeed executing her mandate to release inmates in order to allow a proper flow, which we're here to discuss today, of the inmates in the Point Blanch prison. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just over 2 to 3 years ago, the prison capacity moved from 70 then to today 80. What justifiable reason was there for this increase? Are there new prison cells that we're not aware of? What is the minister's short-term solution to tackle the current detention capacity issues? What is the minister's short-term solution to tackle the current safety breaches to protect both the inmates and the prison guards? Is the minister aware that because of the Point Blanch prison is at maximum capacity, new detainees in Phillipsburg Detention Center remain there longer than the allotted 10 days in some cases? This is a blatant violation of Article 3 of the ECHR that I just mentioned earlier. How is the minister planning to address this problem? I was made to understand that 2 inmates are currently using ankle bracelets of the 20 plus or 20 available. Why only 2? Who is currently doing the ankle bracelet monitoring? You mentioned it earlier. But is it done internally or by the prison guards? Because that's what I was told, but I'm a bit confused because I was informed by prison guards that it's done internally, or is it outsourced? And if indeed it's outsourced, which I think you mentioned earlier in your presentation, to whom is it outsourced? And what is the credentials what credentials do they have to execute this service? Regarding the ankle bracelet policy, why have you not reactivated it? As it is right now, you're presently following what is listed in the Criminal Code. How many persons are listed on the waiting list to serve their time? I don't need names. I just need an amount and a breakdown of the following. How many are illegals? How many of the total illegals have now received sentences under 5 years that are pending? And also, how many that are in prison right now are illegals and have received less than 5 years? How far back does the list go as it pertains to the court verdict? What is the latest court verdict on that pending list right now, by date? Is there a policy in place related to good behavior of the inmates? If yes, based on what criteria are they being evaluated? And who oversees these criteria? Is this policy currently active? How is the minister informed about upcoming release dates of inmates? Who sends it to the minister? Is it done monthly or weekly? What exactly does the report entail? Of the total inmates currently detailed in the Point Blanch prison, how many are first-time offenders? How many are between the ages of 18 and 25 that are first-time offenders? How many of them are nearing 2/3 of their sentences? What is the exact function of the parole board? What criteria do they use to release inmates? On average, how long does the process take? Are there any entities involved in the release process? If yes, who are they? And please try to walk us through the entire process of the release of the inmate. I've asked about this well over a year ago. I was recently made to understand that the prison rule book has still not yet been updated. When can we expect a modern, updated rule book? This is 2 years in waiting. I'm sure more than 2 years I've asked about this. Another thing the minister could do to alleviate capacity burden in the prison is to initiate programs that allow the inmates to work outside the prison. Don't get me wrong, I'm well aware of the shortage of the prison guards, and realistically speaking, staffing plays a role when it comes to working outside the prison. I'm going to expound on that a little later in my line of questioning. But once this is finally solved, and I hope it is finally solved very soon, my question through you, Mr. Chair, is the work outside the prison program something that the minister would consider executing? Can we involve the VKS with the staff shortage, or can we involve the VKS with this program with the staff shortage, or do we need to give them a particular training? If there's training needed, what is the stumbling block? What does it cost? What does the training entail that they would need to have to assist with the outside program? And how much does it cost? When it comes to the serving of food, in the press release posted, I think mid-January 2023, it was stated that meals for the inmates are prepared by certified chefs skilled in producing nutritious meals based on a well-balanced diet. I saw beautiful pictures, but that's not what I always see when I go in the prison. Can the Parliament be provided with a general list of the type of meals being served to inmates? And since the meal are nutritious, I saw pictures of the of vegetables, but I want to know specifically, do they get fruits? Do they get vegetables? Do they get yogurt? What time is breakfast served? What time is lunch served? What time is dinner served? And what time does the kitchen close? And whose responsibility is it to serve the inmates their meals? How many medical staff is there on the premises? Is there a set time for nurses to be at the prison? If yes, what are the set times? There's a standard procedure in place whereby a new inmate is supposed to have a medical checkup within 24 hours of arriving to Point Blanch Prison by a doctor. Not nurses, by a doctor within 24 hours. Is this currently being done? And does every single inmate right now incarcerated in the Point Blanch Prison, 80 males, 7 females, do they all have a record and a certificate on file right now showing that their medical checkup has been done within 24 hours of their arrival? In cases whereby a prisoner needs to take their medication daily, does the medical staff provide them with medication on a daily basis? In general, Xanax is used to treat anxiety and panic disorder. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is currently an alarming amount of inmates being prescribed Xanax. What's the reason for this? My main concern with prescribing this Xanax is that long-term side effects, and that it can be extremely and quickly addictive. Is there a control mechanism in place to control the prescription period? With regards to the shortage in staff, and it's my final questions, Mr. Chair, I was recently made to understand that the minister is busy retracting a temporary MB to allow the prison guards that are right now assisting at the Point Blanch Prison, not the Point Blanch Prison, at the Simpson Bay and in town. She's busy retracting that MB. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure. How far along is the minister with the retracting of that MB? The thing is that you wanted to retract that MB so that those prison guards can work completely to resolve the issue at the Point Blanch Prison, because normally, from what I was made to understand, and she can correct me if I'm wrong for the record, Mr. Chairman, only the police officers are supposed to man town and Simpson Bay. I could be wrong, just need clarity on that. And if there is indeed an MB with that, I would like to know, I would like to have a copy. I would like to have that copy presented to Parliament. I'd like to understand the purpose behind creating that MB. And of course, I guess I'll read who exactly wrote it and when it was done. I've also taken note of the press release, again, the same press release mid-January. It was stated that the prison guards are being offered training, beautiful training. I just saw the nice presentation. But can the VKS also take part in this training program? If not, why not? And lastly, and just regarding the presentation, regarding the prisoner, that the reason for all the issues that was at the prison regarding this one inmate not being released, has that prisoner received anything in writing from the Minister of Justice regarding why he has not been released to date? Has he received a letter from the Minister of Justice today? Prior to the Minister of Justice discussing this publicly, I would like to know if they received this letter through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Grisha Heyliger-Marten. The next person on is MP Christopher Emmanuel. Christopher Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you, our Hafid, my honorable colleagues, the Honorable Minister of Support Staff, UNOPS, those in the Tribune, everyone who's watching and listening by whichever means. Mr. Chairman, as we get into the discussion, and we had two presentations, one from the Honorable Minister of Justice, which in particular I see no issue with for me. However, I take issue with the presentation of UNOPS, not because it's not welcome, but simply because if there's questions now that have to be asked pertaining to the presentation of UNOPS, who's the one to answer it? And will the minister get those answers given if she's ever coming back to Parliament to answer questions? Because we requested for the minister to be here, but now that UNOPS is here, and the minister opened the door by having UNOPS give a presentation. And if there's questions to be asked pertaining to the presentation or the organization of UNOPS, who's to answer those questions? That's the question that I have for you, Mr. Chairman. Nonetheless, I would like to get into my questions right away. I don't have much questions, but I'm going to start. Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Minister of Justice, I would like to know, by means of a ratio given, as the Minister made mention in her presentation, we have approximately 80 prisoners that are male and 7 that are female. Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the Honorable Minister in terms of a ratio, how does it work in terms of securing or manning the prison? So, for example, is it 2 officers per 20 prisoners? Is it 3? You know, how does the ratio go in terms of manning the prison? Why am I asking that question, Mr. Chairman? Because of the latest reports that we hear that there was a strike up in the prison, and prison officers were concerned of their safety. So I would like to know, how is the prison manned, given that you're understaffed? And Mr. Chairman, another question right now, as is present, how many prison officers are manning the prison right now as we speak? How many prison officers do we have manning the prison? Mr. Chairman, I would also like to ask, can the minister give an explanation or the difference between being in jail and being in prison? Is there a difference? And here's the reason why I'm asking this question, and it's going to come down later on in some more questions that I have also as well. We know that once you're in prison, you are in the custody, and the responsibility of that is the government is responsible for you once you're locked up. I would like to know from the Honorable Minister, is it the Ministry of Justice that is responsible for your care, your safety, or is it the OM's office that is responsible for such? The reason why I'm asking that question, Mr. Chairman, because at this present moment up to today, from since that crime happened way back then, the general public still don't know how it is a gun got into the prison, that Omar Jones was killed in prison under the security, the watch of prison officers, government of St. Martin, prosecutor's office, and the whole shebang concerning the prison. How is that possible? So I would like to know, what's the difference in terms of being in prison and being in jail? Also, Mr. Chairman, I would like to know, through the Honorable Minister of Justice, what type of and I saw it in your presentation, what type of medical care do prisoners receive in the prison? And what type of medical facility is available or there at the Point Blanch Prison right now as we speak? And is there any type of medical facility at the Phillipsburg don't want to call it a prison. That's why I asked you the question, the difference between prison and jail. At the Phillipsburg jailhouse or prison or holding cells as it is. Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Also, Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Minister, this is a question in relations also to the strike that they had, or if we want to call it that for lack of a better word. Who is responsible for hygiene and sanitation at the Point Blanch Prison? Is there an organization that is responsible for hygiene and sanitation in terms of cleaning, in terms of removing the garbage, in terms of the whole system when it comes to hygiene and sanitation? And what also constitute hygiene and sanitation at all holding cells? So we are talking about Simpson Bay, we're talking about the Lally Center down in KB, we are talking about the prison in Phillipsburg, we are also talking at Point Blanch. What constitute hygiene and sanitation? Also, Mr. Chairman, I listened to the presentation where the minister made mention of the different type of tests and blood tests and HIV tests that supposed to be or is on a volunteer basis. Can the minister explain what type of medical procedures are carried out, if any, at the Point Blanch Prison or any location? And the reason why I'm asking that, Honorable Chairman, to the Honorable Minister, and it's not to point the finger and say, well, oh, look, like the minister is responsible and these things happen on the minister. I mean, we are known, we have known of different ministers and certain things have happened to as well. But to you, Mr. Chairman, to the Honorable Minister, we have had a few deaths in the Phillipsburg prison with the gentleman, can't remember his name, from across from the Rasta fellow, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but by giving that description, yeah, I know you're trying to tell me, we all will know, but the minister, I stand to be corrected where the minister can indicate who I'm talking about. You know, that was a death that happened in the prison where he was given, if I should say, medication. And I'm going based on media report. He was given medication. So I'm asking, who supervised these sort of things? You know, what was his doctor present at the time? His medical report wasn't given to the individual. Mental health. Who facilitates these medical procedures to individuals once they're in the custody? Once they're in the custody of anyone of the holding cells or the prisons of whichever one you want to call it. Now, Mr. Chairman, I'll have to ask the Honorable Minister on a scale from 1 to 10, how safe would you say the Point Blanch Prison is right now? On a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most dangerous and 1 being, yeah, pretty okay. How safe is the Point Blanch Prison as it is right now? Because I don't believe, based on discussions that I have had with prison officers, they think it's pretty safe right now. They don't think it's pretty safe right now, Honorable Minister. But that's what I'm asking you, because you would be the one much knowing, seeing that it's your area of expertise. Mr. Chairman, now, and this is the reason why I asked the question concerning UNOPS. Because, Mr. Chairman, UNOPS have been riddled with a serious scandal, where the director or the chairman of the United Nations had to ask the director of UNOPS to resign, Ms. Greta Farino, to resign, given that scandal, that serious scandal that have rocked the United Nations. I would like to know, what is the opinion of the Dutch government still working with UNOPS, given that this scandal has been such a major disappointment, where donors such as the United States and other countries have been asking for their money back or for integrity to be shown concerning UNOPS. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, can the UNOPS individuals who are present here today explain how it is that $61 million could have been given to a single British family, unknown to the director and those in charge of UNOPS? And can they also guarantee that no such thing can happen here in St. Martin or anywhere else, given that UNOPS is making mention of things to happen in February and how they're going to move forward with working in St. Martin, seeing that they don't have an office or any sort of appearance in St. Martin. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, through you to the Honorable Minister of Justice, can you ask the individuals or the representative of UNOPS to give a breakdown detail exactly how they plan to facilitate building a new prison in St. Martin or assisting with a new prison in St. Martin, a timeline? I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Emmanuel. Next person I see is MP Peterson, but on the screen here I see MP Sarah Wescot-Williams has pressed her mic, but she is not signed in. So are you still wanting to speak or after him? So I would give the floor to MP Ryan Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to yourself, to the griffier, to the Secretariat, to my honorable colleagues, to the Minister and their support staff, and to the UNOPS representatives, and everybody else tuned in throughout the various media outlets. Mr. Chairman, I listened to the Minister's presentation, and I was missing a key component, namely what is happening right now at the prison. The inmates have voiced their concerns, they have went to the media, and much like the Chairman himself, I'm sure the Minister of Justice was also made aware of the press release on the topic. Yet I haven't heard anything specific about the alleged food strike or the level of discontent amongst the inmates right now. The presentation was basically the Minister giving her side of the story, but not really addressing the contradictions between what she presented and what is being said by the inmates that is currently happening. On top of that, Mr. Chairman, through you, the UNOPS is brought here to give a presentation that Parliament did not request. And this in no way is any criticism towards the UNOPS, because you guys actually took the time to come here, all of you, and inform us. And I thank you very much for that. But it's just very unfortunate that you were used as a buffer for a very serious public meeting with some very critical, current, and urgent concerns coming directly from prison inmates. These tactics are downright disrespectful to the inmates who are going through it on a daily, if you ask me. And actually, Mr. Chairman, I would actually have to agree with the Minister on her first statement about this presentation being presented here today, because I am also of the opinion that the right meeting for this would have actually been the Justice Committee meeting. Actually, if you looked at the presentation from the UNOPS, itself said that they had a meeting with the Parliament Justice Committee meeting today, so I think that they were also under that impression. MP Emmanuel asked the right question to your person, Mr. Chairman, and I will ask it again. The topic on today's agenda is a discussion regarding the flow and managing of the inmates at the Point Blanch Prison, which pertains to the prison right now and its current daily condition. According to that agenda point, Mr. Chairman, if I'm being very strict, I cannot ask any questions regarding the presentation that you let the UNOPS give here on the floor of Parliament, a presentation that we ourselves have not received yet. So some clarity on that from you, Mr. Chairman, would be appreciated. Nevertheless, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to dive right into some of the questions that I had. Some of them were already touched on by MP Heyliger-Marten, but I'll keep it brief. Mr. Chairman, through you, is there a doctor or a nurse on call to be at the prison within an hour or two in case anything very urgent happens and somebody needs medical attention? Because I personally know of a case where a doctor was requested on a Tuesday and a doctor showed up on the Wednesday, after which the inmate had already got some serious concerns and had to be rushed to the hospital a week after. I also had a question concerning the food, as inmates are of the opinion that they do not get a food based off of a well-balanced diet. It seems like it's going to be the Minister's word against the inmates, so I will refrain from re-asking this question and wait for the answer on MP Heyliger's question on the matter. I saw in the presentation, the first one, that there is currently a test phase going on in regards to telecommunication, the voice over protocol, which is nice. But my question to you, to the Minister of Justice, to you, Mr. Chairman, is what is, right now, the exact situation in regards to prisoners being able to contact their loved ones at this current moment? Because I understand that at the moment, there are absolutely no privileges whatsoever, and that's what some inmates are saying. So some clarity on that matter would be appreciated. Also, Mr. Chairman, through you, I see that the gym has been beautified in the sewing room as well, but the reports coming from within the prison, from the inmates, is that this beautification does not actually mean that they can use these facilities. An example was given that the sewing room right now has no materials to work with. So just some clarity on that matter to you, Mr. Chairman. Also, Mr. Chairman, what is the minimum requirement for staff for prison guards when it comes to the prison? How many guards should be placed at what times? How many and at all times? What is the minimum requirement by law? And is this minimum requirement actually being met? And lastly, Mr. Chairman, there is an alleged case of an inmate who is still being held in the prison, although his release, supposedly, his supposed release date was a week ago. And I would like to ask this question in private to protect the inmate's identity, but I would still like to get some clarity on the matter, so I will ask the minister that after we go for a break. And that'll be all for me for now in the first round, Mr. Chairman. I thank you.
Thank you, MP Peterson. The next person I have is MP Sarah Wescot-Williams. MP Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good afternoon once again. Just let me revert back to the comment regarding not having signed in. I think I need to say it for the sake of the listening public, especially, that the signing in means signing in to speak, one, and that I was under the impression with our new system, by having my button on, that would automatically give you a speakers list. But because I know that it's a work in progress, so I understand that, but I just wanted to make that point. Mr. Chairman, thank you through you, to the minister and the representatives of UNOPS for their presentations here. However, both presentations has, to me, created a larger gap between what was presented and what I understand to be the reality on the ground. So I saw a lot, I heard a lot, but what I'm hearing on the ground does not match up with what was presented. Mr. Chairman, I firstly want to get from the minister a very clear overview of the current issues with respect to staffing at the Point Blanch Prison at this moment. And I want to take the opportunity, considering that the minister in her presentation referred to the issue of placements, I want to hear from the minister the issue of placements pertaining to prison guards, as well as the general issue of placement for the entire Ministry of Justice. And I would like the minister, in giving that overview, to also speak to the issue of overtime, payments, etc., especially with the seemingly chronic staff shortage that exists at the prison. And then, with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I would also like the minister, for my understanding at least, because as hard as I tried, I can't put my finger on where the issue is now with respect to payments to justice workers. And specifically, I would like to understand from the minister the matter of interaction, communication on the issue of payment to justice workers between the governor's office and the Council of Ministers. So I would like to know exactly what was sent to His Excellency the Governor and what has been requested from the government in order to sign off what was sent to the governor, if the minister gets what I'm really asking, because with all of the press releases pertaining to this topic, I would like to know, again, I say, what was sent to the governor that was then sent back is it then that the governor is asking for individual amounts to be paid? And Mr. Chairman, I ask these questions, and I'll talk some more about the financial issues, because right now we have an issue with the budgets of this country. We have an issue with the budgets of this country. And that's why I want I'm repeating the word specific so often, but I want to get a clear understanding of the whole financing of payments and payments to our justice workers. And if exactly what was sent to the governor and exactly what the governor asked for, if I could just get a grip on it to understand what is really happening. What is really happening with this whole matter? Sticking on the point of financing for a while, and looking at our budget, mind you, when I say that we have an issue with our budgets, this is the issue. Parliament passed, a majority in Parliament passed the budget 2022 with certain things in it, including the reservation that the government of St. Martin had to contribute or had to take up in the budget for the new prison. And that budget, eventually, that budget, after passage by Parliament, was not approved. It was objected to by the CFT, the 2022 budget. We haven't received the 2023 budget yet, but when you don't have a budget for the year, then you rely or you use the basis as your basis, the budget of the previous year. So the question in connection with whatever finances are necessary would be, what budget are we using? What does it mean when the CFT disapproves of the budget passed by Parliament and the year has passed? We can't be drafting a budget or amending a budget 2022 any longer. So what is our financial instrument at this time in terms of a government's budget? Sticking to the point of finances, what is the current agreement with the Dutch government and the government of St. Martin as far as it pertains to the financing of the new prison? Have costs already been made, and where are these costs allocated to? So what's the financing agreement, which we saw some time ago? What's the current status of the financing agreement? Have expenses already been made with respect to that? How much, and on whose side of the budget has it fallen? The Dutch government or the amount that needed to be reserved in the local budget? Is there any other assistance provided to the prison in terms of security any other than the Wescot-Williams? If so, how much extra security is being provided and at what cost? Mr. Chairman, on 2, 3, maybe more parts of the presentation by the minister stressed on this has been done, that has been done with the involvement of the inmates. And then that brings to my mind immediately the question, if that is the case, yet we hear from the lawyer representing the inmates of some deplorable conditions and situations at the prison. And how does the minister assess the statements one by one, the public statements by the lawyer representing the inmate. So if the lawyer says, for example, this is the case, and then I look at what the minister presented, how does the minister assess those two? So for example, and a colleague of mine asked it before, in terms of recreational activities, educational activities, are these really happening as presented by the minister, is my question. Mr. Chairman, I understand, and I mean, you can't get blood out of stone, as we like to say here in our local parlance. So I understand the tight situation that those managing the prison find themselves in. I understand the dilemma that you can't stop the operation in order to build a new facility. But when it comes to, for example, the separation, and the minister and ministry would have to tell me is that how legally is the obligation, not how legal, of course it is legal, how hard is the obligation on the ministry to keep convicted persons and persons in pre-trial detention separated? So how, because I'm understanding, yeah, we got 2 persons in each cell. I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm understanding that there are persons there, of course you have convicts naturally, but also those in pre-trial detention. So on that topic, how strong is the mandate, the legal basis that the minister has to keep that separation? Or is there some flexibility, you can throw in one here, throw in one there, and shift around? So I would like the minister to explain that, please. Mr. Chairman, there is one thing that, again, I have tried to understand what the problem has been for years. So on a particular topic, it is somewhat of a déjà vu feeling in terms of the rights, or rather than the rights, the operation manual with respect to the treatment of the inmates and the rights of the inmates. Why do I mention the word déjà vu? I remember, and many ministers have been in here, many ministers have explained the issues that they have been facing, etc., etc. And then I remember this matter of a very old, for the lack of a better word, I'm going to say it in Dutch, handleiding coming up that regulates the rights and the procedures regarding the inmates. Do we have a new one? Do we have something to go by right now? And if so, of when is that? And yeah, so I need to do that. Because again, if I read statements coming from, amongst others, the lawyer representing the inmates, then it doesn't give me the feeling that we're working according to updated, modernized manual, let me call it that, but I think the Dutch word is speaks better to it, the handleiding. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like to know that, because indeed I can see some of the ministers coming here and explaining why it could not have been renewed, and there was a draft for a renewal, you know, and all of that, year after year after year. Coming back to a point I raised earlier, I now put a question to the minister. So we have some, I want to call them non-essential services to the inmates. You know, the recreational services, the educational services. But given the staff shortages, how does this affect these services? Because it's good to have it on paper, it's good to have it on picture, but if you don't have this, you hardly, if you do, have the staff to carry out the guarding of the inmates. So how can these other things happen? Happen. And the work that the inmates themselves have been assisting with in the prison. How is this affected by what is going on right now? Again, I'm understanding, and Minister and associates, correct me if I'm wrong, that prisoners, I don't know how that is regulated, who does what, and how do you control that again, but that prisoners, inmates are, they help out with certain things, cleaning and that type of issue. So how are those type of services affected if, again, we don't have enough persons to do the work, unless we don't have sufficient guards, but we have sufficient auxiliary personnel? I'm asking, I don't know. And then, Mr. Chairman, my final two questions, the first one being, with respect to human rights, and we have had several cases of human rights or the lack thereof having been challenged, and are there any such challenges pending right now where, because of the conditions or whatever, the government of St. Martin, and we have seen where that has even in some instances stretched to the kingdom/Dutch government, are there any such challenges hanging somewhere right now? And are there any updated prison visits that have taken place by, for example, or to be taken place shortly by, for example, I think the correct acronym is CPT or something with those letters in any case? Is there such a visit pending? Is there such a report coming from? So where do we stand where that type of assessment of our entire prison operation is concerned? And Mr. Chairman, I want to go back a moment to my question because, as I said, I see and read the presentation by the minister and by UNOPS, and going forward, I hope that the agreement will stand, the agreement between the Dutch government, UNOPS, and the St. Martin government, because one of the conditions of this agreement is that the St. Martin government makes available its part of the budget for the new prison. So as I mentioned at the beginning of my questioning, that was done. But our budget, overall speaking, is in a dilemma. So I hope that agreement would continue to stand. And again, coming back to the situation on the ground right now, where is this matter of the inmates and their complaints? How does the minister look at addressing? Is the minister, or does the minister feel that that is absolutely not in conformance with reality? So, kind of it is what it is, or does the minister plan to meet, to hear, to compare what the inmates and their representatives are saying vis-a-vis what we just got as a presentation, is my question to the minister. So where do we go from here with a situation that is there right now? And a strike. And yeah, I understand from the minister apparently why the strike has taken place. We see where the lawyer of the inmates give a different overview of things than what we have received here in presentation. So my final question is, where does the minister, if seen it necessary, plan or how does the minister plan to take that situation up right now, pick it up, or maybe there's no need to even do so, and we just kind of ride it out, and at some point, we'll see where it goes. So, Mr. Chairman, if the if the minister can respond to those. I hope my question to the minister, especially regarding the last one, why is the situation at the prison at this moment still ongoing? So I would like the minister, and what does the minister plan to do with respect to the current ongoing situation at the Point Blanch Prison? I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Sarah Wescot-Williams. The next person I have is MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon once again. Mr. Chairman, I would love to go straight into my questions or concerns or suggestions regarding this topic, but since so many speakers before me also wanted to chime in a manner of how this meeting was called or what presentation should have been made. Mr. Chairman, I personally have asked for many meetings of Parliament. As a matter of fact, those meetings were called by the previous chair. Mr. Chairman, I was never once asked as a requester, do you want a presentation? Do you want the minister to go? Do you want any of that? We had it with GB, we had it with the airport, we had it with various ministers. All of a sudden today, Mr. Chairman, to my surprise, it's a problem that the minister is offering to give a presentation. And the irony is, and then thank them for the presentation after. Mr. Chairman, we have to be honest if we want to just really solve a situation, and a situation that I can be critical of, and I can pose questions and share concerns of what's happening at Point Blanch. But if it's always about me and what I want and what's supposed to be and go my way, how does that help the inmates in Point Blanch? I have a simple question to the minister. Does the minister believe that presentation in any way hurt the inmates by making such a presentation if we are here for their interests? Spending time calling points of order and stuff for something that has nothing to negatively affect them, to give the members of Parliament more information? That members of Parliament then rightfully said, based on your presentation, you said this, now I have this question. Members of Parliament used the information that was presented to us to question the same minister. We heard suggestions from some MPs, we heard all of this, but what we know is happening is that Parliament increasingly, by means of question hours or public meetings, is being used to grandstand. And it's unfortunate that it's being done on the head of people with real issues that we should be debating and coming with solutions that at least some members of Parliament, to their credit, have presented. Mr. Chairman, I would like to go to just the minister to clarify, because indeed one of the questions that was posed earlier is about the idea of what is happening right now in the prison. So to clarify, I heard the minister in the presentation would mention, for example, this is the current state. Can she clarify with those pictures, current as in this was today, this was yesterday, this was 2 weeks ago, just to be clear, because we do deserve an honest and open picture as to what the real situation is at the moment based on the media report. So I do agree that some better context needs to be given, or let me just say better, some additional context needs to be given to all the members of Parliament so that we understand, are we looking at things that was done a while ago? Is it still that way now? And then, for example, with the telephone, making it clear that no, we have to admit that is something that is not in place right now, but this is the remedy for it. I think it's okay, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, for a minister to come to Parliament and say, you know what, unfortunately, this is not in place right now. We have to just be honest about that, but then, to the credit, present that although it was not in place for many years, by this date, I think we will have it in place. That is transparent and that is fair, in my opinion. So maybe some context on that aspect would be good. I was very concerned about the situation with guards and staff, and I would like to know if the minister has considered discussing with the SZV for those that are on long-term sick leave, making use of the AVBZ provision. Just to describe a little bit what that is, from the translated memory van toelichting of that law, the AVBZ coverage is a national issuance implemented in 1997 to cover the care of persons suffering from prolonged chronic illness where they are dependent on others to care for them. It is an insurance based on the solidarity principle that covers the whole population. So that AVBZ that we see, a lot of us look at the SZV premium, but there's also a separate insurance that deals with long-term illness. So my question is, what we commonly see is someone goes sick, and under their SZV, they get a doctor, and then under the SZV, they get 80% of their salary, or those different conditions. But can the minister consider, for those that are sick long-term, if it is something that is hampering their ability to work? For example, I know of someone that is truly long-term sick within the Justice Ministry that has an issue with their hand. They can't move their hand. That is an example of someone that has a chronic illness, but they're basically going 3 months at a time, going to the doctor, getting a letter at and coming back. Maybe we have to be honest that this person should, who has been paying this premium, be covered now by the SZV and no longer come out of the budget of justice, which then opens a slot to bring people who are ready and able to work. That might, at least in some cases, bring some more active workforce within the Justice Ministry, but specifically the prison. Also, in preparing for this meeting, I studied I believe it translates to the prison, well, the National Decree on Prison Management, I think it would translate in English. And in this decree, you have various responsibilities and rights of the prisoners that are laid out based on the national ordinance. For example, one point I was brought up earlier, which is from Article 8, the prisoner is examined by the prison doctor as soon as possible, but in any case within 24 hours. Is this in place? Also, when you look at Article for mental and social care, Article 13, one or more spiritual advisors and social workers are employed within the asylum is the word they use in English, but I don't like that word, within the facility. Also regarding work, there was talk earlier about labor, for example, some of them working. According to Article 20, sub 3, it states that the performance of work outside the facility only takes place after permission from the minister and under conditions set by, in this case, her. So my question to the minister, being that it appears, if I'm interpreting this correctly, that it really rests on the permission of the Minister of Justice to grant others to work, for example, within public works and so on, is that, at least on her level, something she's willing to do, being that she has a legal right? And if she does, what would the steps be, for example, to have them working within public works for those that are deemed safe to be able to perform such duties? Also, there is something that I think is pretty outdated here, which is under Article 23, sub 2. And the prisoner may receive a maximum of 500 guilders per calendar month from third parties or the equivalent thereof. I would like clarity on that 500 guilders. What is the purpose of that? Is that like what we know as the canteen? So that is something I also would like to get some clarity on, and if that will be modified, and is that still considered sufficient for someone who wants to get additional things from the canteen to really get what they would need from there, considering how prices might have gone up since this 500 guilders was implemented. Mr. Chairman, I was very happy to see, because some of my questions really were going to be centered around the idea that this is not, in general, in the legal system, an idea to just lock people up forever. The idea is that eventually, with the exception of those with a life sentence without parole, the idea is that these people will be re-entering society. So some of the methods to get them back into society were mentioned, but there's one hurdle that I didn't see mentioned, or potential hurdle that I see, and that is the VOG, or as we call it, the police record. What I'm noticing that's happening is that many people come out, they have what we would call paid their debt to society, but then they still have this record. And because of that, of course, it's up to a business to determine whether they want to employ someone or not, but it would be helpful if that VOG gave some sort of context. So if indeed we see these programs are put in place within the prison, such as getting your GED, such as doing classes, sewing classes, handiwork, and teaching music, is there some way where those things can be listed as a sort of a merit? and create a merit program for people to understand that there's a document, whether it's not done by the VOK, because that's not possible by law, but within the Justice Ministry, that is an accompanying document that this person leaves with to show that even while incarcerated, they worked on becoming a better part of society and they wish to return with goodwill and not to continue with crime. That would help a lot of people in terms of the revolving door that we tend to have within our prison system. And some sort of documentation, just being met as soon as you come out with, no, you don't have a police record, that can be extremely discouraging and sometimes turn those people right back to an unfortunate life of crime. So I would like to know if the minister can consider either within the VOK procedure or some other form of justice procedure to document the recreational and reform activities that the inmates are participating in. And finally, Mr. Chairman, regarding the UNOPS, I think it was welcome to see a presentation because it does give us an update. There are questions about what's happening with the organization and stuff, and I think we'll get some clarity. However, what I would just like to know is the aspect indeed of the finances. Is it that St. Martin has already paid anything, or where are we in terms of, or is this more an allocation? And is there room still to negotiate this within, with the Dutch counterparts or the United Nations, considering the precarious financial situation we find ourselves in? And also, the inclusion and the ability, because we see a chart of different experts that would be coming here. I would find it unfortunate that we have great experts within the prison as well. How involved will they be, and are other locals having the opportunity to be a part of this program, especially on a top level? We have to see that sometimes people come to St. Martin to do projects and they realize that this is a very different place to operate in terms of costs, in terms of bureaucracy and so on. They need to have local expertise as well. So what is the emphasis of UNOPS to include local expertise in their operations in St. Martin? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, MP Bryson. The next speaker, MP George Pantoflet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues in Parliament, Okhifir, Minister of Justice, members of UNOPS, persons that are viewing, and those that are listening. Mr. Chairman, I'll be very brief. I want to start by thanking the Minister of Justice and her cabinet for the serious efforts that are being made in order to deal with a decades-old problem. A decades-old problem. I'm talking about at least 40 years, if not more. Mr. Chairman, I also want to thank UNOPS for the presentation. I just have one question. That's the issue with the hiring of an infrastructure expert, I think it is. You said that is still lacking. I think that's a very important position that should be filled. So, Chairman, why did I mention age-old? Because the fact is, Mr. Chairman, we have had discussions on the matter of the renovation of the prison ongoing for quite some time now. And as you all would know, that prior to 10-10-10, it was a responsibility of the Netherlands Antilles. And I can speak from experience because, Mr. Chairman, I had the privilege of working at the Immigration Department at the time, administration, of course. And from that time, I'm talking 1982. From that time, there were problems with the Point Blanch Prison as to staff, as to capacity. So, Mr. Chairman, when I see now that finally, and probably the members of UNOPS might not know, we have finally, after 10-10-10, a kind of a stable government. Because, you know, with instability, you can't get anything done. So now, Mr. Chairman, we have a minister that is there now, a staff that is working in order to ensure that that which has been neglected for years is being taken care of. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, I tried to access a document online, and it had to do with the former the former State Secretary, Mr. Knops. I couldn't access it. It says St. Martin talks, but I couldn't access the documents. I had to go to the Herald. And I found, interestingly, 2 articles from 2018 and 2020 where also the Dutch government was not making it easy for us to access funds either. But finally, I believe, after being, let me use the word, chastised on the international forum, that they decided to assist, which definitely is their responsibility also. So, Mr. Chairman, as I said, I don't have any questions. I just that one I posed to UNOPS. Many questions were posed, and I'm awaiting the response or the answers to those questions to see if there would be need for me to proceed in the second round. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
Thank you, MP George. I believe the next person is MP Angelique Rumu. MP Angelique Rumu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleasant good afternoon to you, Mr. Chairman, and a pleasant good afternoon to the Honorable Minister and her support staff, and of course to my colleague MPs, the viewing and the listening public. I want to thank the Minister for her presentation this afternoon, and I applaud the Minister for the improvements that have been achieved thus far, and also for acknowledging that more work needs to be done. Having said that, I have but one question, as I'm happy to hear of the improvements of the rehabilitation programs at the prison, especially the educational ones, because learning should always be accessible. I would like to ask the Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman, if the ministry is exploring expanding the educational program to include soft skills, such as resume writing, effective communication, and entrepreneurial skills for those who wish to start a business in the future. And that is my only question. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Angelique Rumu. I see there's no more speaker on the list, so I would like to adjourn this meeting for 5 minutes to discuss with the minister on how are they going to proceed with the answering. So the meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Welcome back. In discussion with the minister in the last 5 minutes, I got that they would like to take the floor and give a short synopsis of how they're going to proceed, and the representative from the UNOP also would like to make a comment and closing remarks. Minister, you have the floor.
Yes, okay. So good afternoon again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quite a number of questions had been posed, and questions that I do believe we did cover in our presentation. Nevertheless, we will take the opportunity permitted by your person as the chairman of this meeting to grant us an opportunity to be able to return and answer those questions. But one of the things that I want to be able to state is that I listened keenly to all of the questions, but MP Wescott, one of her requests or questions was along the lines of, Minister, you know, how do you align what you've presented based on what the inmates have indicated? And, you know, there's been discussion about violation of human rights. And I want to reiterate the fact that we have platforms of individuals that consist of the Progress Committee, for example, that makes visits at the prison. They are the ones that are monitoring the work that is being done by the director, the management team, the minister, etc., and they put out these reports in writing. And I'd like to see where they have ever indicated that they have observed that human rights are being violated. Yeah? We've heard mention of a lawyer who is representing the inmates. Legally speaking, where is that established that one attorney is representing all of the inmates? So I mean to say, you know, we have to be very aware of where we are going when we are trying to use this situation that is a very dire one. We know that. We came into this knowing that the prison or the facility in itself was not is not 100%, but we have shown all of the great efforts that we are busy with. We have shown the inclusion of the population. There are some who choose to participate and some who do not. I mean, the individuals are in a confined facility, some for a number of years. For a number of years, of course. Tell me, Mr. Chairman.
I think MP Sarah Wescot-Williams has a point of clarification. Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I believe that I have to address this issue right now as a point of order because the minister referred to me in giving an answer, or not even an answer, and Mr. Chairman, so I want to make it clear what I said. I did not refer to any incidents of human rights violations being mentioned in any report. So to take my question and put it in the context that it was put, Mr. Chairman, I need to clarify, just in case the minister did not hear me well, what my question was with regard to human rights. And I wanted to put it in the context of the kingdom relations where we have seen that we have been accused of human rights violations as a country, and a discussion between whose responsibility is it. So I need a minister to understand that is where I wanted to go with my question, not that I've stated that I have seen it in any report. So, Mr. Chairman, I would want to suggest that the minister takes the questions from Parliament and, you know, and come back and respond to us. Please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Wescott. Minister, you can proceed.
Will do, in terms of taking the opportunity to go through the presentation again and answering every question that has been provided or presented. I'd like to give UNOPS an opportunity, though, because they are leaving the island tomorrow before they return again, and they have a bit of a statement that they'd like to make, considering certain questions came to them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Williams, you have the floor. William Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Honorable Member of the Parliament, for this opportunity for UNOPS to answer to your very valid questions that will most certainly inform the way we move this process forward. I would like to first make a general statement on the mention that was made in relationship to the S3I case that shook the very foundation of this organization in the previous year. A number of public publications have been made with regards to the capacity of UNOPS as an organization to recover from this very serious event. It has led, as it was rightfully mentioned, to the demotion of several senior representatives of the organization, and a series of actions have been taken by the Executive Board of UNOPS with the endorsement of member states to make sure that this is not to happen again. It is relevant for this assembly to understand that the S3I investment funds were segregated from all UNOPS development and cooperation globally, and as such, it operated parallelly. I would also like to mention that due diligence has been made all across the proposal development and the engagement of this proposal with this government to ensure that the aftershocks of the S3I would not affect the proposal. Specific measures have been built into the proposal to ensure that no consequences of this would affect this proposal. Second, with regards to certain operational elements that have been provided, I will, of course, share with the government of St. Martin all the presentation that has been exposed to you for further review, and any question that is being made can, of course, be channeled towards UNOPS for UNOPS to expand on any detailed and specifics. With regards to the statement, or at least the questions for UNOPS' ability to operate remotely, UNOPS will not operate remotely. UNOPS understands the necessity for being presentially in this island, and as such, from the 15th of February onward, UNOPS will maintain continuous presence in the island with expert capacity. Staffing, as it was rightfully mentioned, is of the essence, and UNOPS is making all the necessary steps to bring the highest level of expertise.
MP Grisha-Marten, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, is there new rules of order that I am not privy to that you created? This is a public meeting. How is he answering questions in a public meeting? This is not a CC. Mr. Chairman, please explain me what's happening here. Explain me if we're deviating from the standard rules of order right now. Talk to me. Is this a CC or a public meeting?
I believe you are right.
Okay.
Excuse me for that. You can just make a general remark. Please do not answer any particular question, a general point, and that's it. And I believe you made that well enough. And thank you for your presentation here. And the point is taken well. Even though this information is very valid, but somehow we just have to work with the rules of order for a meeting. And I'm really extremely sorry for if I had crossed the border a little bit extra, because it was more of a knowledge, and we all should know. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your presence here with your support staff. Thank you, members of Parliament. We await your response for the answers, and till then, the meeting is adjourned.